We're going to make an instructional video for you Project Cure people out there in hopes that this will help you to assemble some of the beds a little bit easier. Over the past couple of months, myself, Joel, and this is John, right over here. Over the past couple of months, we've been working on this stuff, so we've kind of narrowed it down and honed it down to what we hope will make it easy for you. So I want to show you some of the tools and the hardware you'll need, and let's start with some zip ties. So we're just going to kind of hover over this for a few seconds so you can jot this down if you need to, but here's some 24 inchers. You need a whole bunch of them because you will need 8 per bed. You'll need 8 zip ties per bed, so you're going to need a whole bunch of these. And then here's some of the machine screws. And then some of the carriage bolts. Okay, of course you're going to need 2 drivers would be best. Actually, while we're talking about it, hopefully you have a forklift and hopefully you have at least 2 people working on a bed, as it makes it go a lot faster. So get a couple drivers, and all this stuff is going to come into play later, but you're going to need some type of a strap to strap around the bed, strap to the forklift so the forklift can lift it up. For sockets, basically you'll need a 9/16 for almost everything, and then this will come in handy. This is a 1/2 inch that you might need for wheels later, which we'll talk about. This is a star driver that you need, and it's size 25. You need a size 25 driver. These are the zip ties I was talking about. You'll need some cutters, duct tape, and what we lovingly refer to as the negotiator. You'll definitely need this. We're going to be working on 2 different beds. One's Advance and one's Advanta. Some of these beds come in with wheels and an IV stand, an IV hook. First things first is you'll have to take this off in order to wrap the strap around and start working on the bed. So I just want to point out some of the options that you'll have to take care of beforehand. That 1/2 inch bolt that I was telling you about, that's what you'll need to take these wheels off. Okay? So this is an Advanta bed we'll be working on, and hopefully you've received all this type of framework for your mounts. But what I wanted to point out before you even get started with this is this communication piece right here. As you mount the framework, the holes will not line up until you remove this. So the next step you're about to see is us getting on the forklift, basically lifting this whole bed up so we can disassemble this. It's just really convenient if you leave it on the forklift, raise it up by eye level, because if you want to come in a little closer, again, this is the piece, the communication piece we're trying to get rid of. And we have to take off 3 screws with that star driver. So 1, 2, and then this is a 3rd one right up here. As we're going to do this, one cable you really need to watch out for is just the power cable. There's all kinds of communication cables in here that you can just cut to make it easier, but this is your power cable. That's the one you do not want to cut. So we'll just take care of that real quick. This is also why it's nice to have 2 people. And then you might want to just remove this too, because it's really hard to pull out, so go ahead and cut that as well. Leaving the power cord.
And some Advanta beds have two power cords, so just make sure you're not cutting power cord. And the power cords will have the plugs like a normal power cord.
Okay, so you will need the 4 nuts and bolts and the washers to get things started, and that 9/16 driver, the socket. We mentioned before that you have an Advanta and an Advance bed, and again, the only difference with the Advanta is before you get started, you have to remove that communications piece on the bottom so this fits. The other thing is, we talked about how important it was with the power cable. Wrap that power cable around the stand right now, because when you mount the bracket, it'll be a lot more difficult to do that. The other thing too is the headboards. You need to make sure that these headboards stay with this particular bed. because these beds should have been tested beforehand to make sure they work. And if you mess up the headboards or mix them up, then the original headboards would be misplaced and they might not work. So what I'm going to do really quick is just assemble this piece by piece. And depending on who drilled these holes in this wood, all depends on how well it all fits together. That's why you need bolts. But I'm going to start with one bolt just to leave it hanging there to get it in place, and then find these two. Why don't you come on in, I guess, so I can show. So I've got one hanging here just to keep it aligned, and then I put 2 bolts in here, and then that just popped right in. If you want to show them my piece come right around here. Just so it slides in perfectly. So that one's perfect. Now let's just see if these two match up. As I finish putting the second one in, and hopefully just push these in. There. And this is a perfect fit. And all you do now is assemble washers. And the nuts here. And while I'm doing this, what we're going to use the negotiator for is, I just put the head of the hammer down here, prop up the bed, which this piece is very heavy, so I'll just prop it up. This is where this comes into play. Tighten that up. Okay, remove the hammer. Now we just need to secure this piece, because when you stand it up, it could just all come collapsing down because this bed breaks down into threes. So before I turn it over to John with the zip ties, I'm just going to show you this one zip tie right here. So I'm just going to go through here, find this little piece of hardware that's down here, and tighten this one up nice and tight. And John's going to show you the rest.
Okay, so the second zip tie has to keep this piece right here from buckling. And so we're going to put this zip tie up through the frame member here, come up and come through this little piece, this little loop, metal loop right here, and then zip that up. And that'll keep this from buckling once it's being stood up. The last piece here is to keep this piece, when this is going to be up at the top, so this piece will collapse when it's being lifted up, unless it is zip tied. So we're going to do a zip around here. There's a round member right here that you have to make sure you catch and come up through here. Just come around, and we just get a little bit there. We leave some leeway here because the strap, when it's being lifted up by the forklift, is going to be pushed against this, and if it's too tight, it could well snap. So we leave a little leeway in there so that strap will be able to lift the weight of the bed up without this snapping.
We were talking about nuts and bolts, and I forgot to tell you why we call this the negotiator. Is if this is barely off, sometimes you might need this just to bang the bolts through. But if it is way off, then you'll have to just completely re-drill, and we've had to do that many times. Okay, we're going to put this strap on the bed so the forklift can lift it up. So this is where we put it. And this is what I was talking about before, about having this loose enough to where there's not a lot of tension on that zip tie when it's being lifted up. So then the forklift comes forward. Drop that down on there. Okay. Is that it? She's still coming. Okay. Okay, coming down. Yeah. Now I think we got to get this strap off. Come forward a little bit. So now what's going to happen is we need to, if you want to come on in, we need to use some zip ties to actually secure this post. So this bed right now is just rocking back and forth. So that one big zip tie is going to support that.
That's what this hole's for. We cup in underneath here and around the axle. And we're going to double that and go back underneath. Makes it a little stronger. This we do tighten down. So that brace will stay underneath that axle. And then we attach the headboards to make sure they stay with the bed. And this process keeps the sideboards from falling out.
Like this one popped up, so you have to fix that and secure it. So this zip tie also comes out.
This is where two people come in real handy. It'd be difficult for one person to handle easily or quickly. Okay.
And we're not done yet. So what's going to happen after we zip tie these now, just duct tape this so it doesn't shake all around.
And that's because when this is lowered by recipients, these things flop forward and get in the way of the bed lower.
While he's doing that, guys, I just want to tell you about, we started using this type of a strap to lift the beds up and down, and the forklift just eats away at it. So we went through about 2 of these until we finally went this size of a strap. So it might be more helpful just to go with the more serious of a strap.
Did wrap around, because this is the only real good place for the duct tape to get. Here you can wrap it around the sideboard itself. Yeah, we now have a bed standing up.
So there you have the finished product. Good luck to you and your crew.